You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we will be running through, we'll be giving our reaction to the IPL Mega-Auction. The plan for the show is this. We will go through each team, myself, Jack, and Ross, who confusingly muddled up on YouTube. We'll give our snap judgment on each team, good and marks out of 10s, talking about the big sales, talking about the big con men, and talking about where there might have been a little bit of value to be found in the market. I, as I said, am Jack Hope, and that is Ross over there. Ross, how are you getting on? You watched a lot of the auction. Have you had a good couple of days?
Dramatic. Absolutely. The auctioneer almost die. Then he returns like the
shouldn't laugh at that.
Then he returns like the Undertaker to finish it off. Like adding to the rich tapestry of the IPL kind of theatre. You had people who franchises blew it. Now, there are some franchises we're going to talk about who absolutely blew their chance here. Not to name names, but Sunrisers Hyderabad, you're going to be in for a tough show. And then also our boy Dan Weston did unbelievably well. Like first time in the IPL. Punjab Kings have come out pretty well, I think. Akash straight into the live chat. An honour for Dan for saving Punjab. He has. They were embarrassing, and they've done brilliantly. So let's get into the show.
Yeah, before we do that, really quickly, can you give the listeners and the viewers just a few messages, and then we will start with. I have a running order here. We will start with. Should have got the running order up. Chennai Super Kings. We're going with one of the big guns first.
Yes, okay. All right. Let's see how many listeners we can retain after we talk through what happens there. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for joining us, first and foremost. Like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe. We're on the road to 10,000. Someone reckons we can get over 300 today, which will get us in to the bracket of 10,000 subscribers. Yep. And then also go on Patreon. We had a new Patreon today. So thank you very much for joining us. I will find your name and I will read you out on the show. And also follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Exactly. You've got to remember as well, Patreon really does keep this show going. Today is Super Bowl Sunday, Ross. Yeah. I want to be on the Nachos and the Budweisers. Instead, I spent the last hour and a half on Crickmetric. Searching names so fast that my fingertips are bleeding and blistered. Help us afford plasters for my hands. Patreon.com/the Cricket Pod. We also had really good fun on the Discord with the people watching along with the auction. Lots of interaction over the last few days. Ross, Chennai Super Kings. We're going to alternate in terms of who's leading on each one. Can you tell me what happened with the Super Kings?
Yes. So if you'd watched the previous mega auction from 3 years ago, wouldn't have been too dissimilar, really. But they've pretty much tried to retain all the lads. They must have such good banter on the team bus that they were just like, you know what? We want to get everyone back in because we've had such a good time. We won it last year. We don't need anyone else. They've retained 12 players from the previous squad by my calculations. Might be 13, maybe one kind of sneaking in there. And they've almost got this like black magic, I saw it described as on Twitter. They kind of use Dhoni's brain and they kind of go, well, do you know what? If it's not broke, don't fix it. But although they can try and eke out performance from undervalued assets or elderly people, they can't fight science forever. Is my view on this. The one last hurrah was it was always like a last IPL was almost like a really good Western film where it's just like this one guy's come back and he's just like, you know what, this is what we had. I think some of their picks were a little bit strange, but at the same time, they're champs, right? They've got the experience, they've been there and done that. You've seen when other teams lose their heads, CSK keep theirs. I think Deepak Chahar went for 14 crore, which for a medium pacer is bonkers.
He's a good bowler.
He's really good. He's a really good bowler, but is he 14 crore? It was a huge move. And even he came out and said, I don't know why I went for so much. I wish CSK would have paid less for me so we could have a better team. They did have a couple of interesting overseas picks. Again, have they used those slots in the best manner, right? Dwayne Bravo, who they were obviously going to repick, 4.4 crore. Chris Jordan, 3.6. And Dwayne Pretorius, who was definitely a left field suggestion, like left field pick for me, coming in as well. I think they've got a relative... The batting lineup looks good, right? They've got Gaikwad. Conway, actually, I think we thought he might be a con man. We thought people might get interested in a beater war. Went for base price. I think good pickup at base price.
Good value. It's good value at 1 crore. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you think that he's there to replace Faf du Plessis, who went for 7 times Devon Conway, I think that's a really good pickup, actually.
Yeah. Agree.
But then they've also picked up the tube. There's some winners and losers in this thing. I think they needed just a little bit more on the domestic batting front. Yes, they repicked Raidu. Yes, they've got a Tapa back as well. But I kind of feel they probably needed another one. If they would have gone for someone like Deepak Hooda or someone like that, might have been more beneficial to them. In terms of some of the other best buys they've got, though, Adam Milne at 1.9 crore, really good pickup. Santner at the same price, we've kind of said as a backup option, actually pretty bloody good player. So I think all in all, actually, it's okay. It is okay. They haven't got a replacement for Dhoni, which I thought they might. We thought they might have gone for like KS Bharat, didn't we? But
someone like Josh Inglis or whatever will be in the auctions and overseas next year, and you can. Pick. I think the overseas market for wicketkeeper batters is super value. Like you get super value there. So if Dhoni does, I was going to say pop his clogs, but that's not what I mean. Hang up his clogs. I
hope he plays for the next 3 years. Like imagine watching him play for the next 3 years would be an amazing feat, right? And if
like
you're only
Tom Brady.
playing, if you're only playing the IPL, like why not? Like you surely can condition yourself to do it. So. We said we were going to spend 5 minutes per team, so we're going to try. I reckon a 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, I think.
You know what? I'm going to say higher than that for them. I think this is at least a 6. Yeah. So I'm looking at their lineup or theoretical lineup.
Yeah, actually,
it's the same as last year's lineup, but in it they bat like I'm thinking that they might have Santner or Bravo or Chris Jordan at number 9. Which is batting really deep.
They do bat all the way deep.
So you make a good point about maybe a bit thin on domestic talent, and you are relying on Raidu and Dhoni and those two to battle aging. And Shivam Dubé is in that lineup as well, and I don't think he's very good. But they bat pretty deep, and they'll have quite a few people who can bowl. They got Moeen Ali, obviously. They got Jadeja who could bowl. Deepak Chahar will get his 4 overs in. Dubé could do some bowling.
He was improving, wasn't he? Let's be fair. The Dube, he was improving.
Adam Milne, and then you're going to get overs out of 2 other players basically. I think it's okay considering the overall quality of the tournament will be a bit lower. I think getting back a team that's very similar to the team that won it last year probably puts them in a good place. It doesn't wow me. We'll give you that. It doesn't. Yeah. I'm not wowed by this. I'd say 6 or 7. It's above average.
Just thought they needed one more batter. Okay, we'll say 6 out of 10 for CSK.
Cool. That'll come back to bite us. We're going to go, Ross. We're going to go next to the Punjab Kings. We're going to talk Dan Weston's boys. I mean, it's no secret, is it? On this podcast, we wanted them to do well. Dan has been, massive on the show, talking about the IPL in the last 2 years. So it was good to see him at the wheel, pulling levers, making decisions. Had his laptop open the whole time, whispering in people's ears. It was good to see him, in action, do his thing. And I think you have to say they've had a really, really good auction. So looking through the headline picks. Basically, in terms of price, they got Livingston for 11.5 crore. They got Rabada for 9.2, Shahrukh Khan for 9, and Darwan 8.25, and Bairstow 6.7 as well. We should throw him into the star pickups there. Now, maybe Shahrukh Khan aside, I think they're all complete A-list players. You partner them with Mayank Agarwal and Arshdeep Singh, and you've already got the core of a pretty good side. A little bit lower down the list, they pick up Rahul Chahar. That's a pretty good leg spinner, 5.2 crore for him. I think that's good value for someone who's going to give you four pretty good overs in every single game. And possibly here, he'll have a little bit of experience bowling at the Wankhede Stadium, won't he, Chahar, as a Mumbai Indians was an ex-player of Mumbai Indians. So there might be a little bit of home advantage considering where this year's IPL is being played. I think there are a couple of people I don't absolutely love. I talked about Shah Rukh Khan there for the amount of money they spent on him. Now, I partly it's very difficult to detach the fact that they had him already and they decided to release him and buy him back for definitely more than the retention would have cost. They might not have been able to keep him for 4 crore, but I think he'd probably have taken 5 or 6 guaranteed before the auction. They paid a lot there, but he's not bad. He can bat and he can bowl.
He had a really strong domestic season, right? So in the summer, he was really good in India. So I think, and he's got a bit more experience now. So
yeah. I think as well, if we're looking at the wider piece, we do have to remember that although they've absolutely bossed the auction, they did go into the auction with only 2 players and probably only one of them as an absolute, top level player in Agarwal. Marshdeep Singh, we don't really know yet how good he is. So they do still have some question marks. I don't think they've got a great pace bowling lineup, and I think Rabada is out for a couple of games, or at least a couple of games this IPL as well, which won't help the situation. I don't love their 5, 6, 7, which will be Bauer. I think it's Bauer. I'm going to say Bauer, and I'm going to get corrected in the chat. The under 19, Shah Rukh Khan, Nodi, and Smith probably. That for me is a little bit weak. But on the flip side, the good things they have are pretty flipping good. Shikhar Dhawan and Agarwal. That's a top opening pair there. Bairstow maybe at 3 or Livingston at 3. The other one at 4. I can't think really off the top of my head. Well, it's up there with Mumbai Indians as a top 4.
It's very strong. Yeah, and it gives it's a little bit varied. I think who's gone under the radar here? I've got him in one of my bargains is Sandeep Sharma. So actually, he's been really effective. And to pick him up for 0.5, I think it was an absolute steal. When you kind of talk about their pace bowling lineup, like if you think of other medium pacers who have gone in this auction, so look at Shardul Thakur over 10 crore, Deepak Chahar 14 crore, Harshal Patel over 10 crore. Sandeep Sharma at 0.5 is a great bit of business. I think they've done really well here. And I'm going to go out and ring. I think Shah Rukh Khan's going to have a good tournament.
Okay, well, look, if that happens, if that happens on 5, 6, 7 isn't a problem for them, then the power they have at the top of the lineup will blow away, a bunch of teams. And as long as they're sort of near league average, hitting at the death, they'll be fine. A couple of other Dan Weston specials in there, I thought. Obviously, Livingston, he buys him wherever he goes, if he's able to. Benny Howe went. I expect him to play probably a couple of games, maybe the ones where Rabada isn't about. He's somebody that could help that weakish middle order. Might share time with Odie and Smith as well. Ishan Perel, don't really know how good he is, but Dan Weston absolutely thinks he's amazing. He went at his base price, I think, which is good stuff. And Rajapaksa, who is someone that Dan talks about a lot as well, and could potentially be someone to slot in if they can find a place, maybe 5, maybe 4, bump Bairstow or Livingston down to 5, and shore up that weakness.
When you read through the batting lineup, he's gone full boundary percentage, right? What you want is people who are going to have a decent strike rate. Have at least some control. Like Darwan offers you that control, right? Agarwal can play that role as well. But actually, when you've got Bairstow, Khan, Bairstow, Livingston, Shah Rukh Khan, Dean Smith, they're 6 hitters, right?
Yeah,
that's a good place to be.
The only thing I would say to counter that is that playing that way is really high variance. There'll be a huge deviation in the scores you get. Sometimes you will get 240. Sometimes you will get 130. Now, you might get more runs overall than a team that only ever gets 155. But the team that gets 155 can win can win every match, whereas the team that gets 130 and then 230 can only win the matches where they get 230, and they will lose some of them. So it's not quite as binary as that. I'm going to wrap up because we were trying to keep it reasonably punchy. I've gone an 8 out of 10. Could be higher, but I think because they started slightly behind the pack, the finishing with an 8 is amazing. It could not have been. It could barely have gone better in my view.
Yeah, I'm in the 8/9 for me. I'm not sure if when we get Dan back on this podcast, he'll turn around and be like, "We had a fucking day out. We had an absolute weekend at the IPL auction, and they've done really well, I think." So 8 out of 10. We'll go with that for these guys. Quickly in the live chat, thank you, Guyan, for the super chat. CSK without Mr. IPL, Suresh Raina, and Faf is unimaginable. What are your takes on this new strategy from CSK, despite being so successful with them? Let's move on at some point. And they got some really good value from Devon Conway. They got 7 Devon Conways for the price of 1 Faf du Plessis, and I think Suresh Raina was past his best. Shouldn't have played last year.
Yeah, I think on Faf as well. There's an element of buy low, sell high here, isn't there? I know they're not getting any money for Faf, but Faf, in my view, is not worth the amount of money that people spent on him. There's a lot of overseas players that could produce that. Now he's definitely a starting opening batter in the IPL at the moment, but there are a lot. I mean, Conway's probably one of them that can replicate basically what Faf du Plessis does. He's also old. They do need some people to play like next year and the year after. So they can't just have everyone. They will eventually tail off. It just happens. It just does happen. So yeah, great point. Ross, the next team on our list, it's another big boy. We've really packed the first half of this show. Royal Challengers Bangalore.
RCB. Right, so they had an interesting auction. Mike Hesson, as we know, big brain, right, Jack? Right, that's what everybody knows.
He's got glasses, so that's how you know.
They released videos last year of him being like, "We're going to game this system. We're going to embarrass some people, etc." They had the opportunity to retain a couple of their players who they went out and spent more on. So Harshal Patel and Hasaranga. They went big on Hasaranga, 10.75 crore. They obviously overspent for him. And I also think on Harshal Patel, they've overspent slightly. But that has to be measured, right? They chose to retain Kohli. And I know we're not massive buyers of Kohli on this podcast when it comes to T20 cricket, and there's all kinds of brand reasoning and value to the organisation, whatever. But when you do that and spend so much money retaining Kohli, it gives you less of an advantage. So I think they misdealt their retention hand, as we've talked about before. They've picked up 2 players they've had for more than money, so that's not a great start. They've then picked up a 37-year-old Faf du Plessis for 7 crore. When they probably didn't need to spend that much from. If you look at someone like David Warner, who went for less money than that, is a little bit younger. I'm not too sure what value they've really got there. However, they've also bought the likes of Finn Allen, who they had last year. We know that he's a intent machine, which everyone has been using, by the way. Have you seen this on Twitter? On Twitter, on the ESPN thing, everybody is using the term intent machine. Pretty sure it started here. And they also lack some left-handers in their batting lineup. So I think they're lacking in the batting depth department. There's a lot of pressure on whether Kohli will get rid of the captaincy and be amazing. I hope he will be, because that means that the show is going to be much better, right? And Maxwell is obviously the big show. So hopefully that works out. Where they have done really well is their bowling lineup. So when you already have some overs from Glenn Maxwell, you want to be building what you have a little bit wider than just Siraj. And they've brought in World Cup winning and IPL champion Josh Hazlewood. They've obviously got Siraj already. Harshal Patel we've talked about. Hasaranga we've talked about. They're already, you've got 16 overs there. That's 16 good overs that you could, or maybe 15 if you only bowl 3 for Hazlewood. And then Shabazz Ahmed is also an underrated pick, I think, the left armour. And then they've got good backups in David William Berendorf. That is a decent bowling lineup with some good lower order hitting, right? That 7, 8, 9, 10, again, they're the people who can come in and hit you those really important, 15 or 5 balls. So I think they've done quite well there.
I was going to say, just strategically, we did speculate that they might be one of the teams that spend loads of money on a small number of players. And I think that kind of is what they've done. They've obviously had, like Hasaranga's the best example here. They obviously decided that we absolutely want that guy, like his skill set. We can't avoid, we can't imagine not having him. So we're just going to keep bidding and bidding and bidding and bidding. We'll see how that works out. I mean, it kind of did work out for them last year, didn't it? Like, but carry on.
I thought they were really good.
Yeah,
they were really good last year. And you saw how I think some people, like Glenn Maxwell, took full responsibility, right? He was brilliant last year. And let's hope that happens again, because he's fucking brilliant to watch. But I think when you look at who their best buys are, I think they got a great deal for Dinesh Karthik. 5.5 crore. I think he's a good pickup, lower order hitter, wicket keeper, great shirts instantly, and a lovely bloke by all stretches of what we've seen. But it gives you a little bit of what's the word? Some trust in that bottom order. If you lose the top order, you've got someone to bat with that lower order. And I think that is a good thing, because sometimes you see some others panic in that kind of situation. And Dinesh Karthik has got that experience to kind of lead them through there. Finn Allen, I've already talked about. 90 lakh was a good pickup. Ex-Royals player Lamraw, that's 95 lakh, the left-hander. I think he's quite useful. And as I've already mentioned, Shabazz Ahmed. I think overall, as I said, their batting looks a little bit light, but they've got some massive name players in there who could really come out for them. I'm disappointed that they didn't go back in for someone like Padikal, but their bowling lineup genuinely looks excellent. And if you kind of go through kind of the champions of kind of T20 competitions, normally the better the bowling lineup, the more chance you have of winning the competition, right? So I think probably a 6 out of 10 for me. I don't know, it's 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd probably be around 6. I'd maybe even bump it up to a 7, based on the fact that they've managed to retain Mohammad Siraj for just 7 crore. I don't know what he'd have gone for in the.
When Prashant Krishna's going for 10 crore.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I mean, they have Maxwell, Hasaranga, Hazelwood's decent. Faf du Plessis, provides great stability. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering who's going to bowl. Well, I mean, let's say 7 out of 10. We don't need to. We are planning at some point this week to do a bit of a deeper dive where we talk maybe best 11s and that sort of thing. But there are a bunch of guys that obviously we didn't know would be picked up by different teams that we'll have to go and research to put together a decent show of that nature. So to steer us away from that now, do you want to move on? Or?
Well, there's just a couple of questions. So Satvik asked around, is Hazelwood a good pick for RCB after today's performance? Absolutely. Like he was great last year. He's a safe pair of hands. Berendorf saying people he's kind of underrated. Who's going to be the next captain for RCB is kind of the big question there, Jack.
That's a really good one, isn't it?
And we've got different options, right? You've got Faf. I mean, it could go. Imagine if Virat took it back. Karthik is another option in that space. I kind of think if they were going to go that way, I'm not sure you give it to Glenn Maxwell. He's already bowling for you, already batting for you. You kind of don't want to do that, right? So that's why I think they might have spent a bit more on Faf du Plessis. I think that he might be the one who's going to be given it, and there might have been a bit of a captaincy tax on him.